Today we're going to talk about all of the latest QD-OLED developments from Samsung Display for 2026. We'll look at their latest generation technology, talk about their new penta-tandem panels, their new quantum black film, and discuss what the improvements and updates are for this year that we can all look forward to in the future from their technology. We'll look briefly at the headline information for their latest TV panels, and then we'll do a deeper dive into some of the latest monitor panels that have been announced and that are being developed for this year. Keep in mind here that we're talking about Samsung Display, who are the panel manufacturer who make all of the QD-OLED technology panels used widely in the TV and monitor market, competing against LG Display, who make all of the WOLED panels. We'll talk about which display manufacturers are using Samsung Display's panels as well, which include Samsung Electronics, but also various others. If you want to know more about LG Display's 2026 WOLED technologies as well, check out our other video linked below. One thing we should discuss up front is the common use of generational naming schemes. Samsung Display used to do this themselves up until 2024 when they released their third generation panels, shown here in a Samsung slide from the time, corresponding neatly to improvements in panel technologies and specs that changed each year. After that though, they abandoned the generational naming scheme, instead preferring to just refer to new panels by their production year, although you'll see throughout this video that we've continued to allocate new panels to different generations as we feel this makes things simpler for the market to follow. The generational naming scheme is therefore our own, although you'll also see various display manufacturers follow suit to make it easier to distinguish the changes and improvements between panels and models. We'll explain the differences between each generation later on as we look through all of the monitor panels in more detail. Earlier this year, Samsung Display announced their new penta-tandem QD-OLED branding, which is used to distinguish their latest panel technology, and we'll talk more about that later as well and show you where this aligns to the familiar generation naming schemes. The headline update for this year is a further increase to the peak luminance spec of their flagship TV panels, pushing up from 4000 nits last year to 4500 nits this year, an increase of 12.5%. This matches what LG Display are advertising with their latest 2026 WOLED technology TV panels as well. The improvements we do know about for luminance are achieved through what Samsung Display say is a newly optimized organic material, although further technical detail is limited at the moment. We know that since 2025, all of their new QD-OLED TV panels use a 5-stack OLED structure and their latest OLED material, and so far they've not shared any other brightness specs for their 2026 panels other than the 4500 nits peak and a minor increase to reach 450 nits for full screen white. Remember also that with QD-OLED panels, even the peak luminance is achieved through an additive approach for the red, blue and green luminance, and so you get a higher colour volume for HDR than on competing WOLED technology panels, where an added white subpixel is used to boost brightness, but can cause a drop in colour volume and some slight washout of colours in very low APL scenes. We should keep in mind that with all of these headline panel brightness specs from both LG Display and Samsung Display, the real-world performance from actual TVs can be somewhat different, especially when set up in a normal colour temperature and not some overly cool or vivid preset mode designed to accentuate the brightness. We'll need to wait for further testing to understand how the headline specs translate into real-world performance across different TVs and their various modes in the future. But early demonstrations and side-by-side comparisons that we saw at CES this year suggest decent ongoing improvements in panel brightness. Samsung Display confirmed that there's no other updates this year to colour gamut, reflection handling or other things, just those improvements to brightness that we talked about. Let's focus specifically on the monitor panel market though, which is our key area of interest. We'll talk about the new and upcoming 2026 QD-OLED panels in a moment, but it might be helpful to have a quick recap of the QD-OLED monitor panels that have been produced over the years, as this gives some context to some of the changes and updates that we're seeing this year. As we said earlier, while Samsung Display don't really talk about panel generations anymore for their monitors since 2024, we'll continue to split them up into logical generations here, which align with the latest panels that they've produced. We think that makes things easier to follow and easier to identify the changes over time. Also note that making this a little bit more confusing, sometimes display manufacturers refer to their own generations, some using the Samsung Display naming scheme, some referring to their own monitor generations, which can make things a little bit more confusing. Anyway, QD-OLED monitor panels first came out in 2022 with the curved 34-inch ultra-wide 175Hz panel used in a wide range of monitors to date. That was a Gen 1 panel, and it's actually now end of life and no longer in production, but it was the first venture into the monitor-sized QD-OLED panels that we saw. In 2023, Samsung Display produced a curved 49-inch super ultra-wide panel as part of their second generation, which offered a 5120 by 1440 resolution and a choice between 144Hz or 240Hz refresh rates. Second gen panels included a new hyper-efficient electroluminescence material, also referred to as EL 2.0, which made its blue light emitting layer more efficient and clearer and helped increase the brightness on TV panels by 30% at the time. In the monitor market, it didn't signal any improvements to brightness compared with Gen 1, with 1000 nits peak brightness still being the limit, but there were improvements to lifespan and durability made possible because of that improved efficiency, which led to reduced power consumption and heat production. In Gen 2 panels, this was combined with what they called IntelliSense AI 2.0, a feature that also helped to improve panel lifespan and reliability, as well as screen uniformity over time by optimizing pixel level load and light output intelligently. This again can help with power consumption, and overall Samsung stated that their second gen panels were twice as durable as Gen 1. Also officially part of this second generation, but a little bit of an oddity in the timeline, was an updated 34-inch ultra-wide panel, this time with a 240Hz refresh rate. It's actually formally part of Samsung Display's second gen QD-OLED panels, but it was actually produced a little bit later in 2024 alongside some of their later Gen 3 panels. That makes it a little bit confusing, but Samsung Display consider it part of Gen 2, and it includes the same EL 2.0 material and IntelliSense AI 2.0 technologies as the 49-inch super ultra-wide panel, which helps improve lifespan and durability, and of course it's got a higher refresh rate than the older 175Hz panel as well. We'll talk about pixel layouts separately in a moment for all of these panels, by the way, as that's not actually tied to any generation in particular. In 2024, Samsung Display released their Gen 3 panels, offering two mainstream and very popular size options for the first time. This included a new 31.5-inch, commonly referred to as 32-inch, size panel with a 4K resolution and 240Hz refresh rate. That's been used in loads of monitors to date in the 32-inch segment. Later in the year, they made a 165Hz refresh rate version available as well, adopted in some monitors aimed at lower-end systems and at a lower price point. That 32-inch panel was available in flat and curved formats as well. They also released a 27-inch size panel with a 2560 by 1440 resolution and a 360Hz refresh rate, the fastest OLED panel available at the time it was announced. Again, later in the year, they made a lower 240Hz refresh rate version available for use in lower cost displays. Both of these new Gen 3 panels featured updated technologies. For their 32-inch panel, a new Pico inkjet printing process was used, which is what deposits the quantum dot ink and allowed for 60% more pixels in the same area with a very low error rate, and that's the technology therefore behind making the higher pixel density panels possible, like the 32-inch 4K panel that year. The other update was their new quantum enhancer technology, which uses an AI-powered compensation algorithm that helps improve lifespan and durability, and which is personalized to each individual panel. This helps prolong the lifespan of the OLED panel, as well as help reduce the risks of image retention or other image problems over time. This should help manage and protect screen uniformity too, and Samsung Display talk about this doubling the durability of their panels again in 2024. The quantum enhancer feature is also linked to the improvements in refresh rate from their third gen panels, reaching up to 360Hz that year. In 2025, they made a further update to their Gen 3 27-inch panel, pushing the refresh rate and brightness even higher. Thanks to an enhanced driving circuit, the refresh rate of this panel was increased to 500Hz, the fastest again from any OLED panel at the time. Panel optimizations also helped improve the brightness of the panel, allowing certification for the first time under the VESA Display HDR 500 True Black tier, instead of the True Black 400 tier that all previous panels have been certified under, although peak brightness remained at 1000 nits for this panel. Also in 2025, we saw the first of their 4th gen panels produced, with the most significant change being an update to their EL material, their electroluminescence material, this time to version 3.0, which hadn't been updated actually since 2 years prior. Samsung Display say that this brings a further 30% improvement to efficiency and can allow for higher brightness levels as well. This latest EL 3.0 material was also used across their 2025 TV panels and marked a shift in their panel structure, moving from 4 light-emitting layers to 5 layers. More recently, Samsung Display have now introduced a branding for these EL 3.0 panels with the 5-layer structure, and they've called it Pentatandem QD-OLED, with Penta signifying 5. They say that compared to the previous 4-layer QD-OLED panels, Pentatandem improves luminance efficiency by 30% and extends lifespan by 2 times again. Thanks to an updated Pico Inkjet Pro process, they were the first monitor OLED panel manufacturer to increase the pixel density further to 166 ppi in order to offer a 27-inch 4K panel with a 240Hz refresh rate. The updated Pentatandem structure allowed them to retain the same brightness levels as earlier panels, despite the higher pixel density here, which would otherwise have caused a drop in brightness. We referred to these as Gen 4 panels, and the 27-inch 4K panel was the only Gen 4 panel produced in 2025. On to the latest 2026 panels then, and we've seen a few new options produced already. These will all feature their 5-stack Pentatandem QD-OLED structure and EL 3.0 material that was introduced in Gen 4 last year. One significant change though for 2026 is that Samsung Display will now offer what they referred to as 2 panel options to display manufacturers. The first is what Samsung Display have recently branded as Quantum Black Film, a panel optimization and film which is designed to do 2 things. Firstly, it helps improve blacks in brighter room conditions, reducing the purple hue that you can get on older QD-OLED panels, and, according to some marketing material, increasing the perceived black depth by up to 40%. Samsung Display talked more broadly about how it reduces panel reflectance by 20% to help achieve this, but we saw positive improvements in our testing of several new 2026 monitors using this film. This new panel film option is marketed under various brand names by different manufacturers, such as ASUS's Black Shield film, MSI's Dark Armor, or Gigabyte's Obsidian Shield film. It's the same thing on each of them, just branded differently by each display manufacturer. We found this offered good improvements to blacks in brighter rooms and did a nice job of eliminating the previous purple hue as well. The second benefit of this new black film is that it increases the panel hardness from 2H to 3H, providing 2.5 times better scratch resistance. The new Quantum Black film is an option for all new panels, including some that they may refresh, although it seems unlikely to us that any manufacturer would opt not to take this on the new panels. The second new panel option for 2026 is a choice between the normal semi-glossy panel finish on the QD-OLED panels or a new matte anti-glare low reflection option, or AGLR coating. We've seen Samsung Electronics apply their own AGLR coating on their QD-OLED monitors for the last couple of years, but now Samsung Display are offering this as an option at the panel level, and it will depend on the monitor use case as to which monitors will receive that option. We've already seen some examples of new monitors for 2026 featuring this new AGLR coating option, mostly in the professional segment where reducing glare and reflections is particularly important. So with those 2 new options in mind, we've already seen an updated 27-inch 4K panel option produced this year with a lower 120Hz refresh rate, but with the added new Quantum Black film and AGLR coating finish. That's been adopted by MSI, for example, already in their Pro Max series monitor. An even more significant update for 2026 is a refresh of their 32-inch 4K panel from 2024, now using their newer EL 3.0 material and Pentatandem structure and offering improvements to brightness and durability, including True Black 500 certification, although peak brightness remains at 1000 nits on this panel still. This new 32-inch panel again offers the black film option, which has been adopted by manufacturers like ASUS and MSI already with their recently announced monitors. There's also the option for an AGLR coating, which has been adopted by Dell for their new ultra-sharp QD-OLED monitor. That new panel for this year marks a shift to a Gen 4 panel in the 32-inch segment, which is of course great news. The other new panel, already in mass production for 2026, is the first of what we'll call their new Gen 5 panels. This is another refresh of their 34-inch ultra-wide panel with the same resolution as before, same curvature, but this time it's got an increased 360Hz refresh rate and the optional black film that's been adopted by many display manufacturers already in their 34-inch monitors that have been announced for this year. Most interesting of all though for this new panel is the shift to a true RGB stripe subpixel layout, or this is what Samsung Display refer to as V-stripe for vertical stripe, improving text clarity and reducing fringing artifacts that impacted all of their previous pixel layout generations. We'll talk about the different QD-OLED pixel layouts a little bit more in a moment. Along with that update, further panel optimizations have allowed Samsung Display to finally increase the peak brightness spec for these monitor panels, with the 34-inch module offering 1300 nits for the first time, along with the True Black 500 certification. A February 2026 press release announcing their new Penta Tandem branding also referenced an upcoming refresh of their 49-inch Super Ultra-Wide panel for 2026, which will be built around their EL 3.0 material and therefore offer an improved True Black 500 certification and panel brightness. It will continue to offer the same 5120 by 1440 resolution as the earlier Gen 2 panel, but the refresh rate, peak brightness and pixel layout are still to be confirmed. Since it's a new 2026 panel, the black film and ADLR coating options should be available if display manufacturers want to take those, and we'd expect some further improvements certainly with this new panel. Then to finish up, we also know that there's a 27-inch 5K resolution panel planned for the future. We saw this in prototype form last year at Computex in May 2025, but it wasn't included in their CES 2026 demo in January for some reason. This would offer what Apple would refer to as a Retina class resolution with around 220 ppi pixel density on a panel this size. They've proved that they can produce a panel of this higher pixel density, but the final specs are still TBC and it's pending demand and adoption by display manufacturers at the moment. It's likely that it's a more niche panel option for professional displays, so adoption may be limited for now. Here's a summary of the changing technologies over the years split by generation as a quick reference if you want to see how that's evolved over time. I know a lot of you will also ask about other panel sizes and updates, but at this time there's no official information that we can share on other updates that are coming, unfortunately. We have seen some rumours online about potential 24-inch sized QD-OLED panels and higher resolution, higher pixel density, 34-inch and even 39-inch panels, but these are just unsubstantiated rumours at this time. We saw similar rumours last year about a 24-inch QD-OLED panel, which never materialised in the timescales that the rumours were suggesting, so for now we'd say take all of that with a pinch of salt. That's not to say that at some point we won't see new panel sizes and options being produced. We've certainly fed back to Samsung Display and LG Display in the past on the demand that we see for new panel sizes, resolutions and options. We've not seen any dual mode QD-OLED panels offered either, another feature that we've fed back to Samsung Display as being potentially of value and worth exploring. For now, we think it's more likely that we'd see refreshes of some of their other panels to offer the latest EL 3.0 material, improved brightness and options like their quantum black film. That seems logical to expect given what we've seen so far. Computex 2026 is coming up in a couple of months where we'll hopefully get some further updates too, so hit subscribe below if you want to stay up to date on more news when we have it. We should also talk briefly about the pixel layout and shape for all of these monitor panels. Confusingly, this is not officially linked to the different panel generations, but we've summarised the different layouts here. Until this year, all of the QD-OLED panels had a triangular layout of red, blue and green subpixels, but the shape of those subpixels has changed a little bit over time, which has helped improve the text clarity and reduce visible fringing on text, as they've shifted from diamond-shaped subpixels to a squarer shape. As we talked about a minute ago, they've introduced a true RGB stripe layout in 2026 for the first time on their new 34-inch panel, and we expect this to be adopted on other future panels in time. Likely starting, we think, with the other panels of the same pixel density we expect, like the 49-inch Super Ultra-Wide panel and the 27-inch 1440p panels. For the higher pixel density panels, like their 32-inch 4K and certainly their 27-inch 4K, the older layout is less problematic anyway, as the high density masks the fringing issues really well. It's likely we'd see a shift for these panels to a true RGB stripe in the future too at some point. You can identify the generation of the panel used in any QD-OLED monitor using this summary here. So, for instance, all of the 27-inch 360Hz QD-OLED monitors that you'll find use a Gen 3 panel from Samsung Display. Sometimes the display manufacturer talk about their own monitor generations, which confuses it, but this is the definitive list of the underlying panel generations and their associated technologies and specs that you can refer to. We've also published the reference infographics on our website with a link to that in the description below, should you want to refer back to any of these lists and technologies in the future quickly. So there you go, that's a full look at Samsung Display's QD-OLED updates and improvements for 2026, as well as a deep dive into all of the monitor panels, specs and generations over the years. If you'd like to help support the content we produce at TFT Central, you can find links to our Patreon below, where you can also get various benefits like early access to new reviews and articles. Do let us know in the comments section if you're thinking of buying a QD-OLED monitor this year, or what you're most excited about in the OLED monitor market right now. Thank you for watching, we'll catch you next time.